Hello, my fellow writers. My name is Lara, and welcome to Learn to Writer, a channel where we talk about the mental challenges of being a writer. And if you've been here before, may the words be ever in your favor. Today we're going to be talking about how to get the feedback that you need on your novel. Feedback can be a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it can also be super dangerous. And that's why I think it's really important to talk about how to get the feedback that you need. In general, the feedback that you need is going to be something that helps you make the book better. You don't know how this character is coming across, you don't know how this plot is landing, you've got the whole thing in your head, so you don't know how the breadcrumbs are, all that kind of stuff. But all of this is in pursuit of making the book into a better book for people to read, obviously. You can be at different places in the book's writing, you can be at different emotional states, and those can affect the type of feedback that you need. And so we're going to break that down. We're going to talk about like the different emotional states you can be in, the different places you can be in the progress of your book, and then what type of feedback you want to ask for. We're going to start off with, we can be in emotional states about our writing, because that's what writing is, right? It's putting our emotions down on paper, putting out bits of our soul out there for people to read. And so at the very beginning of your writing process, the beginning of even learning to write, you can be in a very emotionally vulnerable space, right? Where if you ask for feedback and then that feedback isn't good, like it can really, really hurt. Because you've offered something, you've opened yourself up, and then if you don't get the feedback that you want, not even the feedback that you want, if you're not getting the feedback that you need, if you get feedback on your story and like someone says, oh, this isn't very good or something like that, and you are like emotionally crushed and you just swear off writing forever because like you were hurt by this feedback, the book is never going to get any better because you've given it up, right? So you see how like we want to make it so that you will continue writing, because then you're going to keep getting better. When you're still a little new baby writer, or you're new on a project and so you're not quite sure where it is yet, it is perfectly fine for you to go to people that you trust, close friends, close family, people that you trust, and say, can you read this? I just want encouragement on it. Or can you read this and tell me a thing or two that you really enjoy about what I'm doing? Because when you're specific like that, and you have people that will give you that specific information back, you're being bolstered, right? You're getting the encouragement. They're saying the things that are going to encourage you to keep writing, encourage you to keep trying. It's okay to just ask for encouragement, right? This is not cheating. This is not egoic, especially not at this point. This is getting what you need in order to help make the book better. I have ADHD. And one of the things that I've come to find out about ADHD is that you don't get the happy chemical when you complete a task, which you people who get the happy chemical when you complete a task, like, screw you. But anyway, so I complete tasks and it's just like I've completed a task. And so what I have trained my husband to do is I will say, I've completed this task. Come and praise me for it. Right? And so like maybe it's cleaning up, usually it's cleaning up something or organizing something or something like that. And he will come down and he will say, oh yeah, this really does look good, right? And that gives me the little burst of happiness that I'm supposed to get from finishing the task. But there was a time when I was kind of like, why would I do this? This is just self-aggrandizing or what? No, if this is what you need, then it's what you need. If you get some encouragement and that keeps you writing, that is what you need. Yeah, go ahead and try that. If you're ever feeling, like sometimes if you're just feeling bad about a particular day, you can do that. Just get some encouragement. Sometimes, like, I don't ask for it specifically, but I have friends who I'll be like, yeah, feeling really rough on the story right now. And they'll be like, oh yeah, but I'm so excited about this, that, and the other thing, right? And that just gives you the encouragement. So after that, there can be the place where you're like, this book sucks. Be aware that whenever you're saying something non-specific and generic and emotional like that, that you are probably in an overly emotional type state. The way that you know this is that this book sucks. This book sucks. There's no action that you can take into that, right? If the whole thing sucks, there's nothing. So at this point, if you need some encouragement, you can get some encouragement. You can read the book again, try and find the things you like about it. But in general, you want to notice what your emotional state is and either let it run its course, because sometimes you need to feel the emotions, and sometimes you're just going to have to be like, no, the entire book doesn't suck. There's something about it that does. If you're in this place, you can go look at or go watch my writer's block video, because writer's block doesn't exist, but that gives you a lot of ways to kind of narrow down why you think your book sucks. And then there are times when you emotionally want legit feedback. The story is decently done, you're pretty happy with where it's going, and you legit need to know where the weak spots are. Obviously, you don't want to be in a super emotional place. You can ask for the feedback at that time, but have it in writing so that you can read it at a later time or whatever like that. But, at a certain point, you're just going to have to get feedback, and you're going to need the honest kind of feedback. So you need to be in a place, obviously, where you can take that, because there are going to be problems with your book. That's just going to happen. As much as I'd love that we just put out a book and it's perfect and there's no plot holes and, the characters are amazing and motivated and complex, it just doesn't happen. You edit it. And a lot of times you need other people to be like, what about this? And you're like, oh, yeah. Right? Okay, so those are kind of the 3 emotional states that you want to look out for before you decide what type of feedback that you need. The next part that you want to take into consideration is, where are you in your book? If you are just getting started with your book, so you've written... I don't really want to put a word count on it, especially since, you could be doing different size projects. But if you're still in the first quarter of what you expect the finished size of this book to be, you're still really, really early. That's when you're going to need very grand overall feedback. Is my character's motivation okay? Are you enjoying the idea of this story, right? So this is the time when you want to ask specifically, what's 1 or 2 things that you enjoy about this story? What's 1 or 2 things that you think could be improved? And it can be as simple as that, because you're still developing the ideas at this point, especially if you're a discovery writer. And so you kind of want to make sure that you're on the right track. If you think that the main character is amazing and wonderful, and then your feedback is, yeah, I don't like them, or I'm not connecting with them, or whatever, it's better to stop at that point and redo a few things than it is to find that out when you've written their motivation and their story arc all the way through the halfway point. In general, you're not going to want very specific feedback, especially when you're that early in the story. Line edits, grammar, spelling. In general, line edits, spelling, and grammar, just don't ever ask about those until you're done. In general, I'm just ignore spelling and grammar unless the sentence is so confusing that you can't even parse it. At that point, it might be okay, I need to change the sentence structure so that people can actually read it. But most of the time, spelling and grammar errors, you can read around it. Your readers can read around them. They know that it's not a published piece yet. When the story is still at that point, that's fine. Then there is when you are about 3/4 of the way through your book. This is generally a point that a lot of people get stuck at. There's a lot of advice out there on how to not get stuck at this point, but it might also be helpful to get some feedback at this point. You can ask very specifically for, what are some things you're enjoying? What are some things you think need work? Another useful thing to add to that are, what are some promises you think that I've made that you are looking forward to being fulfilled? You promised that there would be romance in this, and, at this point we should be ramping up into whatever the romance is going to be. Or, you made it seem like that this person was going to become a dragon rider, and, I'm expecting them to become a dragon rider, and you're like, nope, I never made that promise. And so obviously you need to go back and fix that, right? Because the book is coming toward the conclusion, and so this is the time that you want to find out what are the things people are expecting, along with, is the character doing well, is the plot going well, and all that kind of stuff. This is the point at which you can get a little more specific with the type of feedback that you need, in that I like to use Mary Robinette Kowal's ABCs that she has for giving feedback, and very briefly, because she's got information on there out there, but it's like there's an A for things that you think are awesome, a B for things that have bored you, a C for things that confuse you, and a D for things you don't understand. That gives you a good kind of overall, where are the good points, right? What is awesome? And then where are the things that need to be improved, but specific to whether they're confused by it, they're bored by it, or they don't understand it. Where more to narrow in on what the possible fix would be. Because for the most part, if you're getting people to give you feedback, you don't want prescriptive feedback. That's when they say, oh, this isn't working, but maybe you should do Y, right? You really don't want people to give you advice on how to write your book unless you know that they're not going to influence how you're writing your book, right? Because the story that you're trying to tell is uniquely your own, and other people will have, oh, this is how I would tell the story, and so obviously this is how you would fix this problem. And that might not necessarily be how you would fix that problem. Now, I've gotten to the point in my writing where if somebody gives me advice on how to fix something and I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't work with what I'm trying to do, I can say that, I can distinguish that. If you're not quite to that point, because, there's going to be plenty of time during your writing career where you're not at that point, you don't even want that to be introduced because it can influence you. And so it's better to just have, I was bored at this point, and then you go in and go, oh yeah, there's no conflict. This guy's just navel gazing the entire time, or whatever the problem is, right? And then you figure out what you want to do in order to fix that. Then you've got the point at which I call draft 0 is done. Draft 0 is just the generic name I give to the story. Now has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it is basically readable throughout the whole thing. Not saying there's not plot holes, not saying there's not, problems and inaccuracies and whatever, lack of foreshadowing, but for the most part, you've got the book there. You've got the skeleton, the outline of the book, all written. This is a really good time for the ABCs, Mary Robinette Kowal's ABCs, and then you want to ask for some more specific things, right? Because at this point, up until you write the ending, you can still be like, oh, I can put in X, Y, Z. I can still finish off this motivation. I can still add this payoff or whatever. And then once the book is written, you've done that. Technically, there's no more that you're going to add. And so then you can ask more specific questions like, do you think this character arc paid off? Do you like this specific point? Do you think there was enough foreshadowing for, this reveal? This is the point at which you should be in an emotionally stable place, because you need to ask people the really hard questions, right? And you need to be prepared for the answers. You want to be able to have them say, no, this arc did not land at all. I was expecting, this thing, and then it was completely unsatisfying. And you need to be able to take that and go, okay, how do I fix that? And not, okay, my book sucks and I should just throw it in the trash, right? But once you've gotten the book done like that, I want to say you need to be ready for that kind of advice. It is also okay to put the book away for a little while and settle into the doneness of it. It's not like you have to write the end and then immediately send it off to your friends, right? You can obviously go through it a couple more times. You don't ever have to get feedback, at a specific point. It's just, in general, a good idea at some point, right? But you also want to be ready for that. The type of feedback you need when the book is done is just going to be more harsh, because you need to know the things that are not landing. You need to know the things that aren't working so that you can fix them. And then once you've gotten that, and you've gotten all the plot holes filled in, all of the whatevers, that's when you can do like it's technically still a beta read, but like it's almost not even a beta read. That's when like you can be like, okay, I need to know the sentences that are awkward. I need to know grammar. I need to know spelling. I need to know factual inaccuracies, like all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a copy edit. At some point, you're going to have an actual copy edit done, but the more that you fix it up before you have to send it in for a copy edit, just the better. And you don't always have to do this kind of a pass. I happen to have some friends that are very good at this kind of a pass, and thus I leverage their know-how. Not everybody's good at it, right? Not everybody cares. Me in particular, when I read something, I miss typos, and I miss grammar, and I miss spelling errors, because I'm just like reading the book. It's not to say I miss all of them, but you know, I miss a lot of them. I hope that this helps you to kind of break down what kind of advice it is that you need when you need it, so that you can get, you know, like I said, the goal of this is to give you feedback that helps you make the book better, or whatever it is that you're writing. I write novels, so, you know, in order to make the novel better, you know, where you are, what it is you need, and how to ask specific questions, right? In general, you want to do this with people that you trust. Just remember that if you do get feedback from writers or people that you don't know, you know, you might have to be a little more emotionally prepared. You don't know what type of feedback they're going to give. Doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to do. You know, it just make sure that you are in a good place to receive that feedback, and to throw away any feedback that you don't necessarily want or need in your life. And hopefully with all of this, you will be able to get the feedback you need in order to improve your book and get your book finished. So if you like this video, go ahead and like this video. If you'd like to see some more of my videos, go ahead and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.